Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 9, Episode 48, overall 488 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all-electric vehicles and Cadillac products as well. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210. Tell them Chris Palme sent you, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been family run and operated here in Guelph since 1969, and they've been a proud sponsor of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, going on their third year. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is also brought to you by Wellington Brewery at 950 Woodlawn Road West here in Guelph. Check out their website, wellingtonbrewery.ca. Try a Welly on, and please remember to drink responsibly. Wellington Brewery is celebrating their 40th anniversary, and they are one of Canada's oldest local craft breweries as well. So please check out wellingtonbrewery.ca or pop by the brewery here in Guelph for local beer. All right, guys, I hope everyone's doing well on this. I can't believe it's already Tuesday, February 4th. 2025, and I'm looking forward to my guest today. This is going to be his 6th appearance, which will put him in 3rd place on my appearance list for guests, and he's becoming a regular here on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. He is Buffalo Broadcasting Hall of Famer and former longtime WGR 550 radio personality and host. One of the good guys, and he's also a fan of the New York Mets. Howard Simon. Good afternoon, Howard. How are you?
So who are 1 and 2? First and second.
First and second. Oh, okay. For my show, Pat Gregor, who's with TSN. He's a National Lacrosse League analyst, and he's with Quebec, Canada. He's the one that kind of got me into the game of lacrosse. And Aaron Sanders, who's the voice of the Windsor Express of the basketball league. It's kind of like the G League. He's been on my show 7 times. So you just moved ahead of Stu Boyer for number 3 now.
Yes, I'm going to text Stu and let him know I'm ahead of him now.
But I have another Buffalo guy coming on, our lady tomorrow, Kelly Dudzik. She's going to be on my show for a 5th time. So even though I don't live in Buffalo, Buffalo's like my second home.
That's good. Kelly's, I mean, I don't know her personally, but I've seen her. I admire her work and everything. So that's good.
And I also have another Buffalo guy on tomorrow too. Dan Dunleavy's coming on 11:30 to talk Sabres with us. Another great guy. And I didn't know this. Dan used to be the public address announcer for the Toronto Argonauts, and he also did some radio work for the Toronto Rock. So Dan's a really great guy too. So you guys have a lot of great broadcasters in the Buffalo area.
We're very, very lucky. And yeah, Dan's done a great job and he's a really good guy, in addition to being a very good play-by-play guy.
And it's not easy following in the footsteps of a legend like Rick Henrett.
No, it isn't. And he's done a great job doing that.
Absolutely. And Sabres have a big game tonight against Columbus, and we'll see how they respond. Hey, I got to ask you this, Howard, since I have you on, before we get into the Bills. One of the Sabres, Tage Thompson, got nailed the other day by one of the Devils, and apparently I didn't see the game, but the Sabres, none of the Sabres came to his defense. What are your thoughts on that with Tage Thompson?
Yeah, I didn't see the game either, but I've seen the hit, and I'm aware of what didn't take place. Somebody should have gone after the guy, like right immediately. It's funny. I think there are times when you watch an NHL game where it almost felt like we got to a point where any big hit, thundering check, there was always a response. It didn't matter whether it was clean or borderline or dirty, any big hit, someone always responded. And I think, now you see a hit like that, and especially who it's against, it's Tage Thompson. And, you think about the history of this franchise and Milan Lucic and Ryan Miller, and Lindy's the head coach. And like the night before, 2 nights earlier, they honored Rob Ray. Like there were just so many things that came into play that made that a really cringeworthy moment. So again, having not seen it live, and apparently, thankfully, he's okay. But I don't know that it really shouldn't have mattered whether he was concussed or completely healthy. I think, as I said, the NHL reached the point where any big clean hit, even somebody goes after the guy. And I just think to me, the biggest problem is, there is the mentality of, does anybody have your back? And especially for like the better players on the roster, you'd like to know that if someone lays you out, that someone has your back. So yeah, I think they should have responded. I think once you miss the moment, Chris, like I know that Lucic Miller thing, they played the Bruins at home. I don't know how long it was after that game, but it was a little while after the game. And I think it was Paul Gostet or somebody got in, challenged Lucic, whatever. They got into a fight at the next time they played Boston. I think you missed the moment. And, they don't play New Jersey again next season. They play them next season. Even if there's 3 fights or someone jumps Nuis, and you miss the moment. That's not the point. I mean, you're supposed to react in that moment, in that time. And I think it's a bad look.
Well, I know with the Red Wings back in 96, 97, Claude Lemieux broke Chris Draper's jaw, and the Red Wings retaliated. Darren McCarty, he basically stood up for him, and they ended up having a brawl, and that absolutely galvanized the Red Wings that year into winning a Stanley Cup for standing up for your teammates. And I know Landy Ruff, they canceled their practice on Monday and had a meeting, so I guess they addressed that. But since I have you on before we get to the Bills again, just thoughts on Rob Ray going into the Sabres Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it just, I'm happy for him. I think it's obviously well-deserved. I was thinking about that. I was driving around the other night. I started thinking about, I remember he used to do a regular appearance on WGR with Mike and Chris, show up in the Bulldog in the afternoon. I don't know, maybe he still does. I apologize. But I know I used to listen to it all the time. And I remember him talking, of course, they'd always ask about his career and a fighter and, the guys he would always match up against. And Rob would always talk about how he never really he didn't like sleep well the night before a game against, I don't know, Tony Twist just popped into my head for some reason. But when he knew they were playing somebody the next day and all the fans were expecting these 2 guys to drop their gloves at some point and fight, Rob wouldn't necessarily sleep well the night before. It's not a fun job, he was really good at it. And at the time, the league's changed a little bit, but at the time, and certainly prior to him coming into the league, it was an important job. Everybody had, if not one, multiple enforcers on the roster, and they knew their job was to protect guys. And even if no one was run, you'd have to go with their fighter at some point during the game. Everybody expected it. And that's a tough way to make a living mentally and physically. And yet he did it. He did it all the time. He did it every season. He did it no matter who the other guy was that he had to fight. And if there was a player like the Tage Thompson thing, if somebody got run, there's no question Rob Ray would have gone after the guy and had some kind of response for the Sabres. And that's not a great way to make a living. It's a hard way to make a living, but he did it. He did it all the time. And he always showed up, home, road, doesn't matter. Back-to-back nights, 3 games in 5 nights, first game back after a West Coast trip. You name the scenario, and it really didn't matter. Rob would show up and literally bleed for the franchise. So I think it's a great honor for him. I have a great deal of respect for him. And I think, again, maybe you don't need that guy as much anymore, Chris, the way the game has changed. But I think he played an integral role to those teams. I mean, he wasn't the best goal scorer. He wasn't the best defenseman. He wasn't the franchise goalie, but his role was very important. Some guys skated a lot more confidently, knowing Rob was on the bench to protect them if anything happened.
And as a broadcaster, he's been great with the late Rick Jeanneret, and now he works well with Dan Dunleavy. And Rob Ray bleeds Buffalo Sabres as much as anybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course he does. And I think he's come a long way as a broadcaster. I mean, it's not an easy job to do that either. And I think over time, He's certainly gotten better. He has a very good, he had a good chemistry with Rick, but he has a very good chemistry with Dan. It's an enjoyable listen. They are able to do the game and have some fun too and joke around. And I always like that as part of a broadcast. And he makes really good observations. So yeah, I think the transition into broadcasting has gone very well for him.
Well, Howard, overall thoughts on this 2024 Buffalo Bills season and their playoff run to the AFC Championship against Kansas City. I think as an outsider, I thought they had an outstanding year, 13-4, couple playoff wins. They really weren't supposed to get this far from the media and from what I've been told by the fan bases, and they just fell short again, just by 3 points again to Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think they'd get that far either, but here's the problem. As the season plays out, I mean, I thought going in, I figured they were a lock for the playoffs. And I thought they would probably win the division, although I didn't think it would be a cakewalk that it turned out to be. I thought it might actually go down to the last week of the regular season, but I still felt confident they were the best team in the AFC East and they would win the division. And then I thought after that, who knows? Like, I did not think going into this season that they were in the same discussion with Kansas City or whoever you perceived as a top tier AFC team. I just didn't feel they were at a level where they were the previous three seasons post the AFC Championship loss to Kansas City the first time. Having said that, they proved a lot of us wrong, myself included. They were better than I thought. I thought the offense would take time and go through growing pains. I thought the passing game would struggle with some of the guys that were gone in the offseason, but they didn't. They didn't miss a beat offensively, really. I was really concerned about the defense with all the player losses they had, and then the injuries that, Milano and Bernard and Teron Johnson. And I just thought, man, their defense is going to take a while for them to grow as a unit. They'll go through some growing pains, but probably like most Sean McDermott defenses and teams, they'll be playing their best football at the end of December into January. But I just didn't know if that would translate into a run in the postseason. I mean, I thought the Bills had really good teams the last couple of years, and they went out in the divisional round at home both years. So I didn't have expectations of getting that close to a Super Bowl spot. But the problem is, as the season plays out and the offense is still humming at 30 points a game and the defense is better than I thought they were going to be, and Josh is having this tremendous season. The one thing on his resume that everybody talked about was too many turnovers, and he's not doing that. He had a career low interceptions. So all of a sudden the bar is raised, right? You go right back. However, I felt this team could win a Super Bowl 2021, 2022, 2023. So I think what happened is we all went right back, and deservedly so, to that spot. Like, hey, they're good enough to win the Super Bowl. So to fall short again is heartbreaking because, you never know what each season is going to bring. Chris, we think Josh is going to play and be great for another 5-10 years. I don't know, but there's no guarantee. And to lose again to Kansas City, right? I mean, let's face it. Everybody's tired of losing to freaking Kansas City. I apologize. I'm wearing red today. I feel bad, but I think losing to Kansas City again, and the way the game played out, it's too bad. It leaves a really bitter, disappointing taste in your mouth in a season that went further than I thought it was going to go.
What are your thoughts on the officiating in that game as well?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not going to go. I am not an officiating cost them the game guy. I don't know that I've ever done it. If I did in my life, I probably did it on one. You could count on one hand where I said flat out, you can always find other plays in the game that cost the team a game and not blame it on the officials. But the problem with this is twofold. One, the perception that it isn't just a Bills thing, that there are fan bases around the country that seem to feel like when your team plays the Chiefs, any possible benefit of the doubt call goes Kansas City's way. I'm not a conspiracy guy either, but it just seems like this happens quite often when you play against the Chiefs. The other thing is, I don't think the officials cost them the game, but they were wrong on a number of calls, and it made it harder for the Bills to win. Look, Kansas City doesn't need any help. They have a Hall of Fame coach. They've got a quarterback who's working himself into Brady status, the way he keeps winning and going back to Super Bowls. They don't need anybody giving them any help with any questionable calls. I thought they got a lot of things wrong. You know, I mean, you can talk about the catch that where the ball hits the ground inside the 5 for, I think it was Xavier Worthy. I think they got the spot at the 40 wrong. I think they got the spot on Kincaid on the previous play wrong. I think they had a couple of penalties on the Bills wrong. I think they screwed up a lot of stuff, quite honestly. So, and it's annoying because, you know, it happens in such a critical game. It's not why they lost, but Chris, it just made it. There's a small margin of error when you play a team as good as Kansas City. And that little margin shrinks a little more when calls are incorrect and they're going against you. And that just made it even more difficult.
Sounds like the New England Patriots. And Howard, someone said this to me the other day. At the end of the Patriots dynasty, we were all getting sick of them. They were getting all their calls. Kansas City was considered the good guys, and now they've become from the good guys to the villain. And you know what? That could happen to Philly. Let's say Philly wins this year and next year, the Eagles are going to be disliked, and people are going to say they're going to get calls.
I mean, okay. Yeah. Well, there's two parts there. One, sure. When you keep winning as much as they do and you're in big games, you're in the playoffs, everybody's watching. Like, I don't know how many people complained about Kansas City. I mean, they were getting complaints over the regular season, but when it's in the playoffs and everybody's watching it, everybody is scrutinizing every single play and every single call because it's a standalone game and the whole country's watching. Well, you're gonna feel, oh my God, they're getting the call again. It's the Chiefs. This always happens to them. So it kind of builds on its own. I forget. Oh, the other thing is you don't necessarily get tired of a team winning. I mean, personally, when the Golden State Warriors kept winning, I never thought, you know what, I'm so tired of Golden State winning. Please, God, let someone else win, because they were fun to watch. They were entertaining. I think it depends on the team, quite honestly. There can be, like the Oilers dynasties with Gretzky. I never got tired of them winning cups. Those were fun to watch. So I think it kind of depends on the team, style of play. There's just so many variables that factor into it. I don't think you can make a blanket statement and say, hey, if you win 3 or 4 in a row or 3 in 5 years, people are going to be tired of you and they're going to root against you. I think it gets to a point where you're just tired of seeing, you know, it's all the commercials. Kansas City's they're on commercials all the time. You're tired of, you know, shots of Mahomes' girlfriend and Kelsey's girlfriend or Mahomes' wife and Kelsey's girlfriends and Kelsey's mom. And I mean, like, it's just too much. And you get tired of, you know, seeing the same thing all the time. Anyway, I know I'm rambling, but it's personal because they beat the Bills all the time in the playoffs. But the Patriots' first Super Bowl, I rooted for them. When they beat the Rams, I was very happy for them because they were a moribund franchise. At one point, I mean, they were the laughingstock of the league there for a little while. So I was okay with New England. I'm an AFC guy. I was okay with them winning. But after a while, sure, we all got tired of Brady, and we got tired of Brady kicking the Bills' ass all the time. I rooted for Kansas City when they won their first Super Bowl. I was rooting for them to beat Brady in Mahomes' first AFC Championship game. But yeah, I am so tired of watching Kansas City. I never want to see them win another game. I seriously am thinking about not watching the Super Bowl for the first time in 50-something years because I have no desire to watch Kansas City win. And I don't like Philadelphia. Sorry. I don't like either of these two teams. I really have no desire to see this game.
Hey, one thing too, being an Eagles fan, back in the early 2000s, the Eagles had Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb. They lost 4 straight NFC Championship games, and then they finally got over the hump and lost the Super Bowl. So Philly fans can relate to the Bills fans in terms of disappointing losses. So I appreciate what the Eagles are doing right now because it's not easy getting to the Super Bowl 2 out of 3 years. And 3 out of 7 years. So, and you never know, Howard, like you said earlier in our show, there's no guarantees next year, and the injury bug could affect them like it did the Detroit Lions this year. Look at the Lions, decimated with 16 guys on their defense out. So you got to, the time is now to win because as of next year, you never know what's going to happen.
Well, that's why the Bills lost this year is just, it's really hard to take because again, I'm not anticipating Josh Allen pulling an Andrew Luck and announcing and surprising everybody saying, yeah, listen, I'm retiring. I don't think that's, God willing, that won't happen. But there's no guarantee. They went to the AFC Championship 4 years ago and they beat Kansas City, and I didn't expect them to make that run. And we thought, this is great. Look how young Josh is, and my God, they're going to be in the Super Bowl and win it next year. Well, they didn't, and it took them 4 years just to get back to the AFC Championship, and they lost again. So yeah, there's no written guarantee that, God forbid the Jets or the Dolphins get a clue in how to run winning organizations. There's no written guarantee they romp through the AFC East, get in the playoffs, and go on a run. And that's why it's very tough to get to the Super Bowl. It really is. 30 teams don't make it. So yeah, that's why I think, I'm sure they'll still be good, Chris, but every opportunity, and things were going really well, right? I mean, there was no Joe Burrow. If you were worried about Justin Herbert, they were gone. They beat Baltimore, who was, we would perceive as the next best challenge because they had knocked off Kansas City in the regular season. And we didn't think this was a really vintage Chiefs team. So they beat Baltimore. People were thought, well, if there's one team they might not get by, folks, it's the Ravens. Beat them. And Detroit got knocked out. I mean, everything was kind of, Washington was making a nice little underdog run. Everything was falling just right. And then they don't get to the game. So yeah, it's disgusting.
For me, Howard, my opinion, the turning point in this game to the Chiefs was the slow start. I know they fell behind Denver 7-0 and to Baltimore 7-0 at home, but they just did not look good the first quarter and a half, or just before the end of the half. And they didn't even try to run the ball until the second half. And they were effective running the ball against the Chiefs. And I feel that if they had run the ball earlier in the game, they might have had more success.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I agree. I think, because you weren't sure if the defense would be able to keep Mahomes in check. And for the most part, they were not. They had back-to-back stops at the beginning of the second half, and that's really it. The only other time there was a stop, Mahomes basically gifted them a fumble. So because of that, you really needed your offense to play a 60-minute game, and they didn't. They played about a 35-ish minute game. I think they scored a touchdown on the final drive of the first half.
Yeah.
And then they looked really good coming out of halftime. They got into a groove, but it took them a quarter plus to get into that groove. And then again, margin of error. They weren't getting stops from their defense until the third quarter. Yeah, it's just that slow start hurt. And I'm not a run the ball guy, but I am a get the ball in the hands of James Cook guy. And
he's amazing.
When they came out in the third quarter, you don't have to run it first and foremost, but give it a shot and see if it's helping when your passing game struggles out of the gate. And they didn't do that until that first drive in the third quarter. They came out and they ran the ball 11 times on a 12-play touchdown drive, and they got the ball in Cook's hands a number of times on that drive. Probably could have done that a little bit earlier as well.
I think James Cook's one of the top 5 running backs in the National Football League, and I think he's really stepped up his game this year.
Yeah, I love him. I think he's terrific. Again, I'm not telling you they need a philosophical shift in their offense and start leaning on the running game. They actually, this was, if you look back, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember checking this. I think it was the closest run pass balance probably in 4 or 5 years. I mean, I think it was like plus 30, maybe 30 more passes than runs in the regular season. And I know there's score effects. If they're winning big, which they were running the ball more in the fourth quarter and blowout wins. So I get all that, but I'm all for getting the ball in the hands of your most talented offensive players. Josh Allen is number 1, and number 2 is James Cook. It used to be Diggs, but he was gone. It isn't one of the tight ends. It isn't any of the wide receivers. It's James Cook. So I think you needed to get more touches for him. He's a talented runner. I know they worry about him on third downs and they like having Ty Johnson out there, but I think you just have to get as many touches for your best offensive players as possible against a team like Kansas City in the playoffs. And I don't think they did that enough with Cook.
Thoughts on Joel Brady, and I guess the Bills coaching staff's all going to probably return next year in 2025 from the looks of it.
Yeah, he did okay. I mean, I was more freaking out a few years ago when, the talk about Brian Dable, is he going to leave? This was before he ends up getting the Giants job. I was really worried about that because I thought he did a terrific job of really creating an offense that was Good for Josh. I did like the pass first approach. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't really worried about balance, and you got to be able to run, and it's too much on Josh's plate. I mean, Patrick Mahomes accounted for over 70% of the Chiefs' offense this season, and nobody complained that it was too much for Patrick Mahomes, but it was for Josh. So I liked a lot about Dable, and I liked he would come up with trick plays, maybe not Ben Johnson level, but he would do a nice job of working some things and designing some things. And I don't think Joe Brady is at that level, quite honestly. But I mean, I'm happy he's here because I think he does. I always do believe that, continuity in your coaching staff is good. I think especially that relationship between the quarterback and the play caller, to me, is probably the most important player coach relationship on the squad, more so than a guy on defense and the defensive play caller. So I like the fact that Josh has a guy he's comfortable with. They know each other. They'll work well together going forward, as opposed to promoting somebody from within or having to go outside, bring someone else in, and he's got to learn all about Josh, what he likes, what he doesn't like. So I'm glad Brady's here. It's one less thing to worry about. But yeah, I thought there were games where, again, usage of James Cook, personnel usage, the tight ends both took a massive step backwards this season. And there were times where just the offense, had its just moments where it was just too stagnant. So I wouldn't say, hey, great, they would have been screwed if he left, but I'm good that he's back from a continuity standpoint.
Where do the Buffalo Bills go from here in 2025? And in terms of the offseason, how do they go about it through free agency? And what do you think this team needs the most? Their needs are in the 2025 NFL draft in Green Bay.
Well, I mean, I'd be surprised if they don't. I think they're going to draft a cornerback. Is going to be a priority for them. I was going to say I'd be surprised if they don't take a cornerback in round one, but honestly, they could go edge rusher too, because their pass rush was not great this year. I think everybody anticipates Von Miller being cut. Even if he was back, he's not more than a 50% snaps kind of guy, which leaves you basically Greg Rousseau. And so I'd pretty almost 100% confident, 99.9999% confident that first pick and maybe two on the first 2 days, day one, day two, will be edge rusher corner or corner edge rusher or defensive tackle. They are going to prioritize talent on the defensive side of the ball. They have to get a cornerback. Now, they have to get a game-breaking wide receiver. I don't know where. I don't know how. I don't know if it's in a trade. I don't know if it's in the draft. My guess is it's not a free agent, because I don't think they're going to hand out a big contract to a wide receiver. But the wide receiving group, yeah, I get they're all into everybody eats. Wonderful. You need someone who scares the crap out of the other team's defense in your passing game. That guy is not on the roster right now. They have to get that.
Thoughts on Keon Coleman, his first year as a Bill? And there's been talk about the Bills are going to be interested in Myles Garrett, but Cleveland's not just going to give him away for nothing.
Yeah. No, and I don't know that it's, I mean, the draft picks, I'm not, who knows what the compensation will be, but I thought I read something where he would, I don't know his contract status, Chris. I probably should, I don't know if we can look this up real fast, but I thought I saw something that he'd be looking for a new contract. Well, if Myles Garrett's looking for a new contract, that's going to be a lot of change. So I'm not sure the Bills are in position to actually do all of that, the compensation, and if they had to give him a massive contract. I would love to add a stud like that on this defense. Would be unbelievable. But I don't know that they're going to be able to pull that off. Coleman was okay. I mean, it's tough. I think it's always tough for a rookie wide receiver to come in and have an impact. It's doable, but it's tough. Now, he did have some injuries. I guess he played through a wrist and some other bumps and bruises. The biggest issue with him is he has a problem getting separation. He'll make contested catches. He'll be open when he's not open, which is great. His size can be a factor in the red zone, but that's not a guy who's going to just cleanly beat people and make big plays for you. He's not the explosive playmaker wide receiver that they do not have on the roster. I think he's more of a possession receiver at best. So it was okay, but that's not enough to answer the Bills' needs.
wanted to get your thoughts on well, I know with the Eagles, they had the worst defense in the National Football League last year, and Howie Roseman hit gold in the draft with DeJean and Mitchell from Toledo and DeJean from Iowa. So it is possible if you have a really strong draft and get a little bit of luck, you can turn that around. And I agree, as an outsider, I think the Bills need help on their pass rush because you need to be able to make things uncomfortable for Mahomes. And it looked like that entire game he had lots of time to do what he wanted to do with the football.
Yeah, and that's, but like I said, it's hard where they're drafting. They're not at, they're not in position to go get Aiden Hutchinson when the Lions got him. They're going to draft 30th. So I'm not sure what you're going to get in terms of trying to find an impact edge rusher. I know you mentioned Myles Garrett. Look, if those guys are on the market, whether free agency or in this position or this situation of trade, they command a ton of money. I mean, after quarterback, stud edge rushers, probably number 2 on the list of the position you value the most. 1, franchise quarterback. 2, destructive edge rusher guy. So it's not easy to get them. It costs you a lot. My guess is they're just going to have to invest in it in the draft.
Howard, just got a couple more quick questions for you. What are your thoughts on the Bills coaching staff? And Sean McDermott's most likely going to go into his 9th year. Is he the right coach to get this team to a Super Bowl? He's done a really good job in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I see some similarities between him and Marvin Lewis and Marty Schottenheimer. Very good regular season coaches, will get your team in the playoffs, but is he the guy that could get this team to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I don't
year?
know. I know I'm supposed to give you an answer. I don't know. I think he's good. I think, well, he's better than Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis literally never won a playoff game with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Good point. Good point.
But Schottenheimer's a good example. Schottenheimer's teams are always good, and then they would just, go belly up in the playoffs and you'd be disappointed. But I think Sean McDermott's a good coach. I mean, I would not make a change. I hate to use this reasoning because it's not a reasoning the owner should use, but you never know. If you move on from this guy, you're not guaranteed to get a guy who's better than him. I'm not at the point yet where I would do that, Chris. It's a very valid discussion because he hasn't gotten into the Super Bowl. I'm trying to think of a guy like Tony Dungy in Tampa was that guy. Now he ends up going to Indianapolis, right? And he won. I think he won. I remember, was him or Tim Caldwell? Was it Dungy, right?
I believe it was Dungy and Pete Manning in 2006.
Okay. But he was in Tampa, right? They were losing in the playoffs, and then they traded for John Gruden, and Gruden won a Super Bowl. So maybe that's not the right example, but I get what you're saying. I mean, it took Andy Reid years, right? He was always getting into the playoffs in Philadelphia, but
couldn't get over the hump. Yeah,
until he got to Kansas City. So I'm not. I guess at the end of the day, if you ask me, should he be back? Yes. How long? I don't know. I mean, I can't, if he doesn't get in by 2027, are you firing him? I don't have an answer for you. I would not make a change. I know that right now. I would not be looking to say, I got to find a guy who is better than him, who can get us over the hump to the Super Bowl.
I know a lot of people don't like me saying this, but Andy Reid getting fired at the time, I was kind of not happy about it, but I think it was the best thing that ever happened to Andy Reid going to Kansas City. It was the perfect city, the perfect team, the perfect situation. And the Eagles obviously got Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni. I know Chip Kelly was a disaster, but they ended up getting Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni, and Nick Sirianni's been a terrific coach. And I thought it was the right time. And I feel the same way about Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. He's a very good coach, one of the best of all time. But there is a point where after many years, maybe it's time for a change. And Tomlin's been in Pittsburgh, since 2008, but I guess he'll be back. But there's a point where you have to say, maybe it's time to bring in a fresh approach. But I think in the Bills situation, I think they still have a good team to get back into the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think McDermott's lost the locker room. We always talk about that. Are players listening to him? He runs a good ship. They don't have issues. His teams are always good. They win divisions, whatever. I thought the defense actually, for not the most talented group in the world, I thought, they definitely, I think, overachieved for a good chunk of the season. And so, yeah, I just don't have the obvious reason is if we're going to judge it on either he's got to get to the Super Bowl or he's a bust, well, then, yeah, I suppose you would fire Sean McDermott. But that's all I got for you. I think he's evolved as a coach. I think he's gotten better. I think he's gotten much better in terms of when to go for it, his fourth down, his in-game decision-making. It's not perfect, but it's better than what it was. He's become a little bit more go for it, trust your offense kind of guy, which is good. I mean, he went out, he obviously had a problem with challenges. They went out and got a retired NFL referee to sit in their booth on game days to help him out with when to challenge. So I think he's evolved over time. And I think that's another reason why I wouldn't say it's a mistake to stay with him.
And I'm going to say this too. I was one of the Eagle fans earlier this year that wanted Nick Sirianni fired because they melted down last year, and then they got off to a slow start this year, 2-2. And he's turned that team, and the players bought it around. And sometimes us fans and even media can let's fire and move on. And sometimes the best course of action is to just keep status quo. And I do feel that, yeah, McDermott is a good coach, and I think he should be back for another year to see if they can get this team into the Super Bowl, hopefully. And I'm going to wrap this up, Howard. What's your Super Bowl 59 prediction? And do you have an MVP? And do you feel this will be a low scoring or a high scoring game?
I'm going to go with the game is called off because no one wants to see either team win.
Me.
You're the one guy, Chris. I mean, I'd be stupid to bet against Kansas City. They got a horseshoe up there, you know what, the whole season. So I'll take the freaking Chiefs, and I'm not going to watch. What was the MVP? It'll probably be Mahomes.
I'm going to go with the Eagles 34-20, and I think Saquon Barkley is going to have 150 yards rushing. And I really feel this Eagles team is better than they were 2 years ago. And Jalen Carter and that front four, I think, are going to get pressure on Mahomes. So, and the Eagles are plus 21 this year on takeaways, and they're 10-0 in the playoffs. So if they can get Mahomes to throw an interception or even a fumble, I think the difference in that game could be 1 or 2 turnovers. But I just have a feeling the Eagles are going to win at 34-20, and but they have to play a perfect football game, no turnovers like Super Bowl 57 when Hurts fumbled it. That cost them the game, really. So the Eagles need to take care of business and not let it come down to an officiating call at the end of the game, hopefully.
Well, we shall see. If you're right, you'll enjoy the game.
Absolutely. And I want Jalen Hurts to get his first Super Bowl because I've been one of his biggest backers, and a lot of people just don't like him, and I feel he's a winner. And taking a team to Super Bowl 2 out of 3 years is pretty darn good.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to do. Yeah.
Finally, Howard, where can my audience follow you on social media? And are you excited about your Mets coming up in 2025?
I don't even know about social media. Honestly, I mean, they can. I'll be honest with you, Chris. I rarely, outside of football season, I really don't post much on social media because since I stopped working full time, I just kind of took a step back. I'm going to share with you a little secret. I'm not sure if you're up on this. Sometimes social media can be an angry place to be.
Absolutely. Especially TikTok. Yeah.
I try not to. I really don't. I think it's H Simon 62 if you want, but I'm just telling you, I really don't. I don't tweet. Can we still call it tweet even though it's X?
I'm now on Blue Sky. I'm on.
Oh yeah, no, I would. Yeah, that's too much work. Anyway, yeah, I just don't. I'm just not actively involved in social media anymore. And I'm good. I'm good with the Mets. I think Soto, great pickup. I'm excited. I mean, I know this is where in the past you get your hopes up and the Mets break your heart, but whatever. That's what being a sports fan is all about. So I'm pumped. I'm looking forward to it. A little concerned about their starting pitching. Not sure if that's going to hold up. But I like the manager. I like the GM they've got in place. The owner certainly puts financial resources into the club. And even if they don't re-sign Alonso, I think they'll still be really good this year. And I think, Soto is the biggest free agent pickup in the history of the franchise.
And here's hoping for a Mets-Tigers World Series because the Tigers had a nice little playoff run last year, and hopefully they can get the gentleman from the Houston Astros, Alex Bergman. Hopefully they can get him. But I'm looking forward to baseball season. And Howard, we will see you back at the ballpark in
Yeah.
Buffalo at the end of March 28th for we'll see if
Man,
the snow is still there or
it's
not.
cold. Yeah, man. What are they doing starting baseball in March?
March 28th. So we'll definitely see you at the ballpark in Buffalo, and looking forward to having you maybe on my show again at some point and talk New York Mets baseball with us as well.
Well, I got to catch 1 and 2 on your list. So yeah, let me know.
You're getting up there, and I will say hi to Kelly Dudzik for you, and Dan will be on my show in the morning. I'll say hi to him for you as well. But hey, I
Awesome.
want to say, Howard, it's a blast talking to you, and thank you so much for coming on my show again and giving us a Buffalo Bills perspective of the Bills as well.
Anytime. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
And my blood pressure is going to be sky high, so
Hey,
I'm
meet you
gonna
there.
I'm
You're in
gonna
it.
have to do. I know, but it's going to be very stressful, and I'm
That's why
just
they
gonna have
make alcohol.
Actually, I'm going to have 1 or 2 beers at home. I'm
Get
watching
some
the
of the
game at
beers
home.
that you got. Yeah, I mean, you get beers with your show. You might as well down them.
Wellington Brewery. I got to
There
give
you
them a
go.
little plug. They do a great job. But Howard, blast talking to you, and I want to say continued success and enjoy your retirement. And you're invited back on my show anytime.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Thanks, Howard. Have a great night.
You too, sir.
All right, guys, that concludes season 9, episode 48, overall 488 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership and Wellington Brewery here in Guelph. I want to say thank you to Howard Simon, the former longtime radio personality and host on WGR 550 and 2024 Buffalo Broadcasting Hall of Fame broadcaster and a huge New York Met fan as well. So thank you to Howard Simon. And before we wrap up our show, guys, on Saturday night, I was at the KeyBank Center for the Buffalo Bandits 16-10 win over the Albany Firewolves, and I was at their post-game media conference with John Tavares, Josh Byrne, and Dane Smith. And I've got an interview from my YouTube channel. Please subscribe and follow and like on my YouTube channel, Chris Palme Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, and was able to speak. The local media and myself spoke to Buffalo Bandits superstar Josh Byrne, who had 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 points, and the Bandits 16-10 win over the Albany Firewolves.
Everything's going perfectly and at such a high level. It's almost unmatched in your experience.
Yeah, it's a cool feeling for sure. I feel like on all parts of our team we're extremely talented. You look at best ever. Defense is unreal. A lot of guys that probably don't get recognized enough. Our offense is insanely talented on top of that. You take some of our, and basically any one of our guys, and they can be number 1 or basically number 1 on any other team. So it's cool. Obviously we have a lot to work on, man. We got pretty emotional. I think, with that talent and understanding how good we can be, we do some dumb things. It's like, come on, we're very good. It's just like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So yeah, we're great, but we have a lot to work on for sure.
Yeah, obviously a few too many penalties in the second half. Gave him a chance to get back in.
Yeah. He nailed it.
That's one.
Josh, what did Albany, besides the penalties, obviously, but what did they do differently to start that second half against you guys to get back into this game?
Capitalized on power plays, really. I mean, listen, it's at the end of the day, we focus on ourselves, and we're going to go back and watch film, and get a greater understanding of what really happened. But from my point of view, it was strictly that we were just taking penalties, and maybe our offense wasn't getting off in time, and they're maybe not calling certain holds, and our offense is getting frustrated, and we're yelling for refs, and from there it's kind of like a snowball effect where our entire team just gets frustrated, and we're up by 7. It's like, maybe let's take a deep breath. And it's me too. Like I snapping on the refs. I'm like, why? There's no reason for it, right? So, I think we need to do a better job of controlling our emotions. It's massive.
How important was it to win all 4 games on this 4-game home stand?
Yeah. In my eyes, not that important. I think it's it's important to win the next game, and that's simple. You know, had a lot of home games, and it's awesome to play in front of Buffalo, but you know, we're about to go on a 10-week streak here where we have 2 back-to-backs, and we're going to be going all over the country. So we need to make sure that, you know, we batten down hatches and make sure we're ready to plug them.
Have you gotten almost used to the weeks off at this point, where it's like, you know, almost 2 in a row is almost odd the way the first 6 weeks are going, and will that change your routine once we get past last week and it's 12 games in 10 weeks?
No, it's frustrating, right? I don't understand why. There's no reason for us to have that many buys and finish off the season with 10 weeks in a row with 2 back-to-backs. Like it's not safe for players. But it is what it is, and I get it. At the end of the day, a lot of it's ring availability, and you know, you have to also schedule around other teams. And you know, last year we went 10 weeks in a row into playoffs, and it was just normal games. You know, one game a week, and that was tough. Right now we're gonna throw 2 back-to-backs in there, so you know, we're gonna rely on our depth a lot, and you know, make sure that we're doing extra and staying healthy and trying to recover as best we can.
When you play a team like Albany, kind of game plan for like a goalie like Doug Jameson because he's so big and fills net. Did you guys adjust at all when they put Kidd in? Did you adjust your shooting at all at that point?
So that's probably one of the hardest parts of the game, right? Is, you know, you put a backup in who I don't even know who the backup was, and Kidd played great. You know, he played really well. You gotta learn as you're shooting what he's doing, what his tendencies are, and that's tough. You know, Kidd is removing the stick. There's hammering 5-hole stick, right? So yeah, it's definitely tough, and you know, you go all week planning for Debbie and shooting shots that, you know, you try to shoot for Debbie, and then all of a sudden a new kid comes in that you've never seen before. It's like, okay, well, try different things, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now he's making saves. And, it is what it is. It's definitely something you got to adjust to for sure.
How do you think Farrell will do as the local folk hero now?
Hey, if he would have scored that penalty shot, I think he'd be doing it. But no, he's an awesome guy. I think you see how much you rally around him and his energy. So you know, we're glad to have him on our team.
Or what has just been clicking for you these past few games? I mean, huge game against Philadelphia and then the game tonight. What has just what's helped you at least get into this consistent rhythm offensively?
I mean, my teammates are doing a great job. You know, moving bodies, create space, drawing doubles, moving the ball. You know, it's making my job really easy. And I've said it before, right? Like different nights are going to be different guys' nights. And you know, Mickey's had multiple 5-goal games. You know, Dana's putting up 12 points a game. And when you have, in my eyes, the best passer in the world on your team, you're going to get looks, right? And if they don't want to go to him, then he can still score 6 on you. So, you know, I'm super grateful to be able to play with Dane. But you know, the rest of our group are just buzzing around, super tough to guard one-on-one and moving the ball and playing it selfish. And you know, it's hard to stop.
What determines a great passer in lacrosse? I know in basketball, not only do you get it to the right guy, but it's always in position where he's in shooting spot. Does it work that way in lacrosse, or is it a little different?
You know, I think what Dane does really well is he anticipates, right? So I would compare him more to like a quarterback, where like he's seeing things develop, you know, based on the way defenses are playing, you know, before they kind of happen. So he's a lot of times he's one step ahead and is seeing, you know, hey, they're going to jump out and maybe try to take away and cut through the middle, and he sees me on the backside. He knows at the end of the day.
Because of the CDP training, right?
He's got the drop in low. But no, I really do think that I honestly think that it comes down to, you know, him being extremely unselfish, and a lot of these passes that he's making, he can shoot the ball easily. He can shoot the ball, but he also understands that, you know, for our offense to go, he needs to make those plays, right? When the Hogan, Fraze, and Bucky are banging hard for him, cut through the middle, and stuff like that, like yeah, he could shoot it, but he's like, no, I'm gonna, let these guys eat. He also is super accurate with where he puts the ball. I think that's something that's very underrated about passers. It's something that I didn't really focus on, until the last couple of years, just from watching him. Everything he does in practice when we're shooting, like he focuses on getting that ball right on your ear or right where you put your stick, and not a lot of guys can do that.
Hey, Josh, non-lacrosse question, but got to put you on the spot here. Super Bowl 59, Eagles or Chiefs?
Buffalo's gonna hate me for Chiefs. It is what it is, man. Just good karma.
Will Shipley of the Eagles is a huge lacrosse fan too, the third string running back.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
All right, thanks, guys.
That was courtesy of my YouTube channel. That was Josh Burns from the National Lacrosse League Buffalo Bandits after their 16-10 win over the Albany Firewolves at the KeyBank Center. The Bandits are now off until Friday, February 14th, when they take on the Toronto Rock in Mississauga. The Bandits' next home game is going to be Saturday, February 15th, 7:30 against the San Diego Seals. You can get tickets at bandits.com. And as for my YouTube channel, Chris Palme, live with CDP Sports Talk, hit the subscribe, follow notification, and the like notification as well. My next live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, again brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership and Wellington Brewery here in Guelph, is going to be Wednesday, February 5th, but not one, but two shows. My first show tomorrow on Wednesday, February 5th, 11:30 a.m. with Dan Dunleavy, the play-by-play voice of the Buffalo Sabres on the MSG Network and WGR 550. And Dan's going to come on and talk about the 24-25 Sabres, their three-game winning streak, their game tonight against Columbus. We'll break down the Columbus Sabres game as well. And we're going to talk to Dan Dunleavy about Rob the Razor Ray being introduced into the Sabres Hall of Fame this past Friday night at the KeyBank Center. So Dan Dunleavy at 11:30 in the morning. And my second show is another Buffalo connection, 7 o'clock with WGRZ anchor reporter Kelly Dudzik. So Dan Dunleavy at 11:30 and Kelly Dudzik, an anchor reporter from WGRZ Channel 2 in Buffalo, New York, will be on my show. And then Thursday, February 6th, 7:30, Toronto Argonauts show with Nick Small and myself. And we're going to talk about the CFL offseason, free agency, maybe the CFL draft coming up, and the 2025 CFL schedule. The Toronto Argonauts now this year have 3 Friday home games and 6 on Saturday. So Nick will come on live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, and we're going to talk Toronto Argonauts and Canadian Football League Thursday night at 7:30. So please tune into these shows. The Cambridge and District Humane Society is celebrating their 70th anniversary this year with a masquerade black tie event on Thursday, February 13th at Tapper Street Hall, located at 74 Grand Avenue South in Cambridge, Ontario. Tickets are $250 Canadian for VIP admission, and the general admission tickets are $175 Canadian. Please purchase them as they are only going to have 150 available, and you can purchase these tickets via e-transfer to exec.director@cambridgehumanesociety.org or in person at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. For more information, visit thecambridgehumanesociety.org. Also, if you're looking to adopt a pet from the Cambridge and District Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario, telephone number 519-623-7722, extension 0. All the animals and pets that are up for adoption there, their profiles and information are on cambridgehumanesociety.org as well. And if you're looking to volunteer like myself, you can fill out a volunteer applications through their website. And they're also doing a raffle draw as well, and you can get tickets on their website and click on events as well. So please, if you're interested in checking out the Masquerade fundraiser event, you can get tickets again at exec director@cambridgehumanesociety.org, or go to the Cambridge Humane Society as well. And the Cambridge District Humane Society is proudly celebrating their 70th anniversary of looking after homeless animals in the Cambridge and District Humane Society. And they do a wonderful job. And I'm proud to be a volunteer and fundraiser with them as well. Before we wrap up this show, guys, as always, Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is again brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new GM, pre-owned GM vehicles, along with all-electric vehicles, and also their great Cadillac products. Or you can call the dealership at 519-824-0210 or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Wellington Brewery, founded in 1985, celebrating their 40th year, is located at 950 Woodlawn Road West here in Guelph, Ontario. WellingtonBrewery.ca. Call them 519-837-2337. Try a Welly on. First brewed way back in 1986. This legendary British-style strong ale is an all-time favorite that we bring back every winter. To celebrate 40 years of Wellington Brewery, one of Canada's oldest local craft breweries, they are re-releasing Duke in special vintage packaging, just like you remember it, with a robust malt character showcasing notes of toffee, caramel, and raisin. Iron Duke remains a classic winter warmer. You can find this beloved brewery on our online store, wellingtonbrewery.ca, with local and provincial wide shipping, or you can pop into our retail store and come say hi at 950 Woodlawn Road here in Guelph. And Wellington Brewery is the proud sponsor of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. And Wellington Brewery is a proud Canadian company as well. So please support a local brewery who has a lot of great beers. And I want to say thank you to Jackie Hanna from Wellington Brewery for sponsoring our show since November of 2024 as well. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, again, is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. Please make sure you hit the follow and subscribe notification there as well. I also have a website if you guys want to check it out, beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. All my social media sites and all my previous radio shows and media work are on beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. And you can find my WordPress site on that website and check out my latest article between the Bandits' 16-10 win over Albany as well. I did some interviews and some pictures and wrote a post-game story from the Bandits win over the Albany Firewolves. I am also back on TikTok, guys. Unfortunately, my long 4.5-year TikTok page was deleted. Unfortunately, long story there, but I'm back on TikTok, same name at Live with CDP. I lost 2,800 followers. So if you're watching this live stream or listening on audio and you were following me before and I've disappeared, I am back on TikTok, same name at Live with CDP. But unfortunately, I lost all my followers, 2,800, and all my content there. So I'm having to start over there. So please check me out on TikTok at Live with CDP and hit that follow notification, please. I would like to get back to at least 1,000 followers to do some more TikTok lives there as well. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. If you're into webinars or podcasting, check out StreamYard.com. I've been with StreamYard now for over 4 years. And if you're a business that looks to do webinars or live streaming for your business, StreamYard.com, and contact their sales department for business pricing as well. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, the audio versions on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, Tuned In, YouTube Music, and Good Pods. And please remember to hit the subscribe notification as well. Finally, guys, you can email the show live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show at cpame19@gmail.com. Any comments, questions, suggestions, feedback, please email me at cpame19@gmail.com. And also, if you'd like to support my radio and talk show, I'm on PayPal, cpame19@gmail.com. And also, check me out on Cameo. Yes, I'm on Cameo. Go to cameo.com, type in Chris Pame, and I'd be happy to do a personalized video message for you as well. And make sure you book your Cameo today as well. And that's about it, guys. I want to say thank you to my guest today, Howard Simon, who's now Howard Simon is now my guest that's been on the third most amount of times. He's been on 6 times. And I want to say thank you to Howard Simon, the longtime radio personality and host with WGR 550 in Buffalo, and now 2024 Buffalo Broadcasting Hall of Famer, Howard Simon, for coming on my show here today. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed and on my audio platforms. And of course, thank you to my sponsors, Barry Cullen Chevrolet and Wellington Brewery here in Guelph. NHL tonight, Detroit, Seattle at 10 p.m. The Red Wings are looking for their 7th straight win. And Columbus take on the Sabres at 7 p.m. at the KeyBank Center. You can watch the game on MSG or listen to it on WGR with Dan Dunleavy and Rob Ray. And speaking of Dan Dunleavy, he will be on my show tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. to talk Buffalo Sabres with us. And Kelly Dudzik from WGR Channel 2 will join me tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So a double header of action of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, again brought to you by Wellington Brewery and Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph. I hope everybody has a great evening, and thanks for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show.